The British Broadcasting Corporation is renowned and respected for its authoritative and informative journalism. A news organisation of record, its reporting is followed up by journalists across the world. The BBC was founded on the values of independence, impartiality and honesty. Its editorial guidelines state that it will never promote a particular view on a controversial issue. For around 70 years, the nation has trusted Auntie Beeb on her mission to inform, educate and entertain, even in times of war. In 1944, George Orwell, who had recently resigned from part of the BBC under control of the Ministry of Information, said, "The words I heard it on the BBC had a new meaning. I know it must be true." Over the years, the BBC's reporters have won countless awards for their reliable and balanced coverage of world events and matters of public interest. Although the corporation has questioned the legitimacy of the war on terror, it has barely reported the many flaws in the US government's account of 9/11. However, critics of the official story have begun to surface on the BBC.
There was an initial explosion on the sub-level number 2, B2. There were 6 sub-levels in the building. Prior to the plane hitting the building.
There are at least 10 characteristics of the way these buildings came down that can be easily explained by the use of explosives.
And on other mainstream news channels. And the reason they're carrying out these false flag operations and blaming Islamic extremists, for example, is so that they can invade countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. And of course that's all very good for the arms industry, the oil industry and the finance industry.
Okay, hey, slow down. I think you're going to... I've just got to join the dots up here.
Attention! Your attention, please. A vast military build-up has been reported in the Sahara Desert, sectors 17 and 18 of the war zone. 14 heavy tank divisions, supported by...
There is truth, and there is untruth.
...have been sighted proceeding in convoy in a northerly direction.
Freedom is the freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4. If that is granted, all else follows.
That is the end of the announcement.
Indigo 1980 level in dust, output by 48%. Stop demolition.
When the BBC first came to examine the evidence surrounding a matter as grave and far-reaching as 9/11, the corporation abandoned its founding values. The Conspiracy Files was heavily promoted in the weeks prior to broadcast. It was introduced as a programme separating
fact from fiction.
After the show was aired, producer Guy Smith claimed that his team went back to primary sources and eyewitnesses. He claimed to have honestly represented the evidence, yet from the outset, broad-brush statements sought to mislead.
The official account of what happened on that day is unequivocal.
Some people will have taken unequivocal to mean that there is no reliable evidence to challenge the official account. Throughout the programme, the BBC failed to state the exact source or particular official report for many of its assumptions. There are so many contradictions in these reports that US government bodies have had to continually revise the official account since the attacks.
There are more than 50 different conspiracy theories about 9/11.
What the BBC should have said is that there are hundreds of questions which the official story does not answer.
So this happened, some 6 hours or so after the collapse of the World Trade Center.
There is an abundance of scientific and forensic evidence to support alternative theories, yet the BBC and other mainstream news corporations have continued to dismiss this information as conspiracy theory. The Conspiracy Files and the BBC in general have failed to objectively present the detail of this evidence. The programme makers devoted far more time to showing certain theories to be wrong, rather than actually proving the official theory to be right.
After 2 years of planning, Osama bin Laden's 19 young martyrs, armed with knives and box cutters, casually walked through airport security and hijacked 4 planes. Then, within the space of 77 minutes, they destroyed the iconic symbols of America's power, taking nearly 3,000 lives with them into the flames, 67 British people among them.
Although this is what the 9/11 Commission accepted, the evidence simply isn't there to make this claim. But the Conspiracy Files didn't reveal this. Instead, this key aspect of the official account was taken for granted. The FBI has confirmed that it does not have enough evidence to link bin Laden to 9/11, yet the BBC didn't mention this.
So on the poster it says bin Laden is a suspect in other terrorist attacks throughout the world. There have not been formal charges, indictments regarding September 11th.
When the British government reported that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda planned and carried out the attacks, the Prime Minister was obliged to admit, "This document does not purport to provide a prosecutable case against Osama bin Laden in a court of law."
Britain is not the only country that faces a terrorist threat. We all do. Allies and non-allies. Anyone, in effect, that isn't them.
Experts have examined the videotape which the US government used as proof of bin Laden and Al-Qaeda being responsible for the attacks. They have widely concluded it is a fraud. At the same time, the intelligence agencies have not authenticated the tape. The BBC didn't say that credible news organisations have reported that bin Laden denied he was behind the attacks. In September 2002, FBI Director Robert Mueller admitted on CNN that there was no legal proof to prove the identities of the hijackers. No Arab names were on the available flight manifests. And respected news organisations, including the BBC, have reported that some of the alleged hijackers are still alive. Why would the producers choose to ignore evidence gathered to the standards of their own organisation? Instead, The conspiracy files included 2 suspected hijackers checking in for earlier connecting flights. Why did the programme not point out that there is no publicly available CCTV of any of the 9/11 suspects where the hijacked planes allegedly took off? The producers also failed to report the long-standing, well-sourced information detailing the symbiotic relationship between the CIA and Muslim terrorists.
Remember this, your government funded and trained Al-Qaeda. Repeat it again, your government funded and trained Al-Qaeda.
There happened to be a routine defense training exercise taking place at the US Air Defense Command. So when the first reports of a possible hijack came through from civilian air traffic control, 57 minutes later, some of the military thought the reports were part of the exercise.
We have a problem here. We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York, and we need you guys to scramble some F-16s or something up there.
What?
Is this real world or exercise? No, it's not an exercise from aircraft.
But in the confusion, it was a further 9 minutes before interceptors were scrambled.
The programme claimed that confusion created by one routine exercise contributed to the failure to intercept the hijacked airliners. But they did not reveal there were actually several exercises running that day, some of which envisaged planes being flown into high-profile targets. The BBC didn't examine in detail any of the exercises running that morning, or how they might have affected the response times of the most advanced air force in the world.
Davin Coburn suggests the military was slow to respond because they were simply unprepared. A passenger airline hadn't been hijacked in the US since 1979, and now there were 4 at once.
Davin Coburn, a journalist for Popular Mechanics, was the only proponent of the official story interviewed by the BBC regarding the Air Force response. The BBC and Coburn implied that the United States Air Force was not in a position to cope with hijacked aircraft. Yet from September 2000 to June 2001, there had been 67 successful mobilisations of fighters in response to off-course aircraft.
And even as they took off, the pilots were still unclear about exactly where they were supposed to go.
We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York, and we need you guys to scramble some F-16s or something up there.
Jets scrambled on 9/11 took off from faraway bases and flew at a fraction of their top speed. Yet the programme makers did not include this, or details of standard operating procedures in the event of a plane going off course.
Traditionally, hijackers don't attempt to disappear. In this case, they turned off the transponders, and so when they went to primary radar, when air traffic controller tried to find them, there were like 4,500 blips that looked identical across the United States. And these hijackers were turning planes back around. They were taking them off their desired course. Air traffic control in Cleveland was looking west, trying to find Flight 93.
His theory does not confer with all the available data. Air traffic control and military radar systems do not simply lose track of flights if they stray off course and their transponders are turned off.